Hi, everybody. I'm Todd, and I hope you're having a great day. Today, I'm going to take a look at a brand new set of headphones from Audio-Technica. They're their new R50X. The R50X are a brand new open back design from Audio-Technica designed for studio use where critical listening is important. They strive to give you comfort over a long period of time with lightweight combination of materials and yet durability for continued use. When you listen to this review, I encourage you to wear the best headphones you have because we'll be comparing the sound of these headphones versus original files. So let's get to it. Now, as usual, based on your feedback, I'm no longer playing the Siine sweep audio, but looking at the graph, we can see that there is an emphasis in the mid-bass frequencies here and a few peaks and valleys in the upper frequencies. When we go to linear analysis, we're getting a little more detail there, but it'll be interesting to hear how this comes forward when we listen to music. Now, looking at the graphs, they pretty much show what I could hear anyways, and I hope it translated on YouTube. There's a solid bass performance from these headphones, but it's not excessive. And then even in the upper frequencies where there may be a little bit of information missing, there's nothing that, drastically changes the sound where this is going to be unusable for critical listening. Actually, I found them to be quite the opposite. I found them very accurate overall, and I think you could make great critical decisions with these once you learn them. Now, moving over to the linear analysis, we just see a little more detail in those upper frequencies. But again, nothing that is causing these headphones to have a very pronounced sound signature one way or the other. I would call them pretty natural. And looking at the overlay graph, we can see here just how closely these headphones mimic the original audio with, again, that slight bass emphasis, which does impact the overall character of the sound here. But really, this is quite accurate. And moving into the linear analysis, again, we don't see a whole lot of major deviation all the way across. So this is actually very, very good for a headphone in this class and price range. Now we'll take a look at a dynamic comparison here with iZotope's audio lens. The purple region is from the original reference file, and the white dynamic line will represent the playback of the recording that you're listening to that was made through the R50X.
Polaroids all scattered across the dusty floor in the backseat of my Chevy 58, along with bits of candy wrappers. Looking back to when our castle was a shack, vacation was making figure eights in the parking lot. Remember when we used to forgive more than we forgot? Polaroids all scattered across the dusty floor in the backseat of my Chevy 58, along with bits of candy wrappers. Looking back to when our castle was a shack, vacation was making figure eights in the parking lot. Remember when we used to forgive more than we forgot?
If I wrote you a song, if I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper, would it make any difference? Would it change for the better if I wrote you a poem, if I posted a letter, if I wrote you a song, if I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper, would it make any difference? Would it change for the better if I wrote you a poem, if I posted a letter?
Now, for male vocal, I found these provided a very accurate representation of the original file. When we look here at the graphs, we can see that there isn't a whole lot of deviation, either based on a logarithmic or in the extra detail in the upper frequencies of the linear analysis. And moving over to the female vocal, we can see a little more deviation in some of the upper frequencies, but again, on the playback, there's not a whole lot of variation here. There is some for sure, but that said, you can absolutely use these for evaluating male and female vocals. And this is a sample of spoken words, so we can compare the sound of the recording directly versus the sound through the headphones. And this is a sample of spoken words, so we can compare the sound of the recording directly versus the sound through the headphones. Now, for spoken word, I found these headphones delivered great clarity, a little bit of a boost sound perhaps in the upper frequencies to my ears, but overall, again, a very accurate representation. Looking at the graphs, we can see minor deviation, but nothing here that's going to make you say these can't be used for audiobooks, podcasting, anything like that. I think they did a really good job. Now, the R50X are really designed for studio use, but they are very lightweight and comfortable for long listening sessions. So for those reasons, they could be a compelling option for gaming. I'll get more into the comfort and build later, but for now, let's listen to some game audio recorded through the headphones.
Save me! Human attack!
Now, I did spend some time gaming on these headphones, and I have to say that they're very comfortable for extended use. The open back design often isn't going to give you a very immersive experience because you're aware of that outside room around you, but these headphones I found to be a nice balance. You got that comfort, breathability, but the overall delivery of the sound did feel immersive. Great soundstage, was expansive in the game. I could hear the environment. So I'm going to say if you want to use these for a mixed use, or even if you're thinking about them purely for gaming, these should be a really good choice. Now, for Soundstage and Imaging, I think these headphones actually perform very well. First of all, imaging is well represented, both in my listening as well as some objective tests that I've run on them. Soundstage I found actually be quite expansive here. I don't feel like everything is all just coming inside my head. Things definitely are expanded out, so the environment feels very good that way. That's going to help you if you want to use them for critical applications where you need to have that. So overall, I'm going to say the performance on these is above average, certainly on par with anything in the Sennheiser 600 series headphones. These are going to get the job done for you. And so let's take a look at the build quality here for the R50X. And these are designed to be very lightweight. You can see quite minimal in terms of the band. Padding is exactly what you need here. It's soft. I didn't notice any issues with it being split with pressing on my head, but that's something you may want to think about. The Earpads are very nice on these. They're velour and they're soft, very comfortable. There's not a lot of swivel on this, really. It's very minimal, but the whole assembly has a lot of movement, so I had no trouble getting them to fit. Plenty of extension here, and the other thing is the clamping force is not excessive. And so you're going to find if you have an issue with tight clamping force, this isn't going to bother you. So that's something to consider here too. They have what I've come to expect here, Audio-Technica, their standard locking connector here. So you can simply go ahead and pop that in, lock it, it's all good. On the other side, we have a 3.5 millimeter, comes with an adapter for 1/4 inch, and it is a thread on the long cable. But on the short cable, we have the lock on the headphone, but there is no lock on the adapter side. You can still use the adapter, but it doesn't have a lock, so I'm not quite sure why they did that. It does come with a nice Audio-Technica pouch here as well. It's got some padding inside, not a hard shell case, but it is nonetheless nicely made. So you have that. That's basically, it. They're pretty straightforward. There's decent room inside the Earpads for comfort. So I found them, again, to be quite comfortable for a long period of time. Metal mesh on the back here, so quite solid. Overall build quality here is at least as good as what you'd expect in the price range, probably even a little better. Now, as usual, I won't spend a lot of time reading specifications to you. There'll be links in the description below. But a couple things to keep in mind here. These headphones have a very wide and expansive frequency response. So if you have an application where extension is important, they're going to be very good for you there. Also, they're easy to drive. So whether you want to use an audio interface or a DAC, your computer, you want to come from a mobile device, they're going to get plenty loud for you. So overall, the specifications are actually very good for these headphones. Certainly what I would expect in this price range and even beyond. After running tests and spending considerable time with these headphones, I'll give you my final thoughts. And the new R50X headphones, of course, are slotted in below Audio-Technica's new R70XA headphones. But I have to say, after spending considerable time with the R70X, I do find both models to be a generational improvement from those. Clarity, I think, is a little bit improved on them. Comfort even is improved in some ways. And not to say the 70X aren't great, because they were fantastic headphones, but there definitely are some improvements that have been made here. Now, for these headphones, they have very good frequency response. I think they're quite accurate, and you can use them for critical listening in many applications. Great soundstage and imaging performance in this price range. They're nice and lightweight, comfortable for long listening sessions. So there's not a whole lot that I wouldn't recommend about these headphones. If you're shopping for an open back design for mixed use, or you want to use them for critical listening in a studio, these are a great option. And if you want to check out some other headphones, have a look at one of the videos on the screen. I really appreciate you joining me as always, and I will see you next time.